Welcome to the Mindful Nomad podcast. I'm your host, Miguel Gutierrez. This podcast is an exploration into the world of creatives, community leaders, and entrepreneurs, taking a deep dive into their lives, focusing strongly on lifestyle, spirituality, mental health, and education. So grab a seat, relax, and join me for this exciting journey through conversations with other mindful nomads. This was previously recorded for the podcast Travel Cuts and Consciousness, but I've decided to keep it on a playlist as it still aligns well with the Mindful Nomads podcast. Enjoy.
I'd like to welcome our third guest for my new podcast, Travel Cuts and Consciousness, Jessica Boston. Jessica is a lead cognitive hypnotherapist and a transformational life coach. Jessica has clients all over the world and specializes in confidence building, anxiety and depression, with her work spanning almost a decade. And I met Jessica on a retreat last year and we bonded over being half Latin and our interest in the human psyche. So I'm thrilled to be interviewing her. So Jessica, how are you? And do you want to give us a little bit of an intro to you and your background?
I mean, you gave an amazing intro. Should I just repeat what you just said?
Yeah, you can just like say
just say the exact same words. That's my professional life in a nutshell.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. What about you as a person?
Oh gosh. That's a big question. No, that's thrown me. Who am I as a person?
Who are you aside from being a transformational life coach?
Oh, I don't know. I'm just me.
Yeah, just Jessica.
Yeah.
So
doesn't sound like a very good answer.
But I mean, like, you can kind of go into like, what is the reason for pursuing a career in hypnotherapy?
Oh, well, I became a hypnotherapist because I went to see a hypnotherapist. That it's a bit of a cliche, but I went to see a hypnotherapist for anxiety and depression, and everything changed when I went to see him. Not instantly, but it just sort of started a way of thinking about things that completely changed my life.
In what sense? Like, what was the process for that?
Well, I went to see Trevor, who's now, been friends for a long time. And I went to see him for just sort of reoccurring anxieties that I had and a way of thinking that I'd actually kind of come back. It was like I'd worked my way through it, and then it's sort of, I didn't realise at the time that the conversations that I was having with certain people was bringing something back up and giving it life. And around that time, me and my mum would meet maybe once a week and we'd talk about an event in my life. And it was sort of bringing everything back and re-triggering me back into a place that I didn't really want to be. And yeah, in that session with Trevor, we talked about that, and we kind of, I turned up an hour late for my session. It was only half an hour, and he did a technique on me that later I would, it's now a technique that I do several times a week on clients, sort of regression technique. And I could see how this one event had entirely shaped my life, how it had got in the way of so much of my life. It had defined who I believed I was, what I believed I was capable of. And every time I progressed, my unconscious was sabotaging me and dragging me back to my old ways so that I would stay unseen and stay safe.
Isn't that how most of us kind of fall into
but I just didn't know. I didn't know. I kind of, actually, that's not fair, because I did, but I didn't know it on the level that I knew it after meeting him.
That's really interesting, because I feel like we all feel like that.
Yeah.
And, certain things bring us back to certain situations from our life, even if we don't know it.
No.
Yeah.
No, you don't really realise until you... It's hard during the day as well, with all the noise in your head and the noise around, to kind of think, oh, could that be the thing that is at the centre of it all? Or maybe that's too obvious, or it can't be that simple, but sometimes it's a lot simpler than we think it is.
What I find interesting is that a lot of people have a warped view on what hypnotherapists actually do.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
What is the most common misconceptions you have to deal with? and what's the reality?
That was a really loud scoff I just made. common misconception is that it is mind control, that especially people that come to see me have control issues, because anxiety manifests as a need to micromanage and overly control everything in their life, because if things aren't in control, they can't cope. So they very much want to, they, even though consciously they want to let go of it, unconsciously they want to control the moment that they're in the room with you, and they want to control the process. And you can work around it, because you have to know that that's going to be a part of their resistance, and the unconscious is trying to carry on keeping them safe. And it's the same part of them that is, afraid of change and afraid of being unprotected by what the unconscious thinks it's doing, will try and stop them from even getting to see you, even getting to sit with you. But once they sort of know this, it can really change the therapy in itself. But yeah, that's one of them. So mind control, or that they'll change to a level that they'll be unrecognizable to themselves. And that's impossible as well. I mean, mind control is impossible as well, because you can't get somebody to do something they don't want to do. I mean, a lot of, you maybe a hypnotherapist out there listening, or a hypnotist out there listening going, no, that's not true. I can definitely get someone to pretend they're a chicken if I want them to. Cool, you do you. That's not what I think anyway.
Yeah, I guess it's years and years of showmanship and TV.
Yeah, and
shows.
Picking the right people, and you couldn't get 100% of people to think they're a chicken. Yeah. You could definitely get someone who's on a night out and they want to show themselves that they've got a wacky side to their mates, and that's their moment to shine. And
I'll be a chicken.
Well, this is permission to explore a side of me that people don't normally get to see. And then I can just, if it's really embarrassing, I can say, oh, what was that? I really, and, there's a sort of mutual benefit in that relationship, because they got to explore a facet of themselves, and the other person got to pretend that they were all powerful. But you can't get somebody to do something. And, when you're making suggestions to somebody, they will take on the suggestions to the level that they want to take them on, and to the level that's right for them.
Is it a job that you have to constantly educate yourself and keep learning?
Yeah, definitely, because we're finding out more about the mind, constantly. We know more about the mind in the last 10 years, 15 years than throughout the whole of human history. So you need to be updated, and you need to have a support network as well, where you're finding out what works and why it works. And even if you hear something 100 times, you don't know it at the level you know it until you do. Things continually sort of slot into place, and you know them at a different level than you did before. And they're concepts that when I started, I kind of got. And then, 5 years on the job, 8 years on the job, you suddenly go, oh, I really get that now. I really get how it works from this angle. And I get, I've got information from a friend that helps me understand how to get it at a deeper level. So it's like that all the time. You're constantly slotting the information into I don't know if I'm being very abstract or if I'm making sense.
I like it.
Okay. But yeah, you have to keep learning. And I'm interested in all parts of hypnotherapy as well, because in my opinion, hypnotherapy is not an exact science. It's also a bit of art and a bit of magic.
Are there any groundbreaking techniques that have been used for a long time that are still around today, or has it kind of changed in the past few years?
I think you realize what's important about the technique, and what matters at the what's at the core of why the technique works, and what's required to get it to work. Yeah. I think it's, what really makes any change effective is awareness plus action. And, what you want them to do is, what you want the person to realize is that now that they're aware of what was at the beginning of all of it, what are they going to do with that information? How are they going to repurpose that information? So you've not changed the information itself. It's like I always explain it like redecorating a room. You know, if you go into a room and you instantly feel like, oh, this room's really heavy, and there's some like, you know, photos on the wall that make me feel really uncomfortable, and just the way it is, you know, a lot of the time that's what our mind is like. We've not redecorated that room, and we've kept it how it's been for years and years, and we haven't had permission to change it. And what you're trying to do with this is say, we don't need to throw everything out that's in the room, but we can make this room lighter, and you can still have your photos up. We're not getting rid of your memories. But if the room feels lighter, if the way you feel about yourself feels lighter, you can still have those pictures up. And you're not going to change who you are, but you're going to change how you feel in that room.
That's like a nice analogy. I like it. I need a new room.
Yeah, a new mental room. And we all have, you know, we think we're just one version of ourselves, but actually I think we're more like little rooms in a house. And, you know, some of the rooms in the house are a bit darker, and, you know, it was a creepy attic at the top of the house that you don't really spend much time in. But actually, if you went in there and opened a window and changed the way you felt about the room, the house would feel different.
Well, I think that we think we're one version of ourselves, but actually there's been every day of our life is a new version of ourselves. So there's thousands of versions of us from the past.
Thousands of versions. And there's thousands of versions. You know, what we do in this process of hypnotherapy is we work on that version that keeps reappearing, that's getting in your way. So let's say most of the day you are versions of yourself that work with the person that you want to be. But then some moments in the day you become 13-year-old Miguel or 6-year-old Miguel, and you're back in a moment in time where you're sort of hijacked back into that moment, and then you don't know how to respond, or you think you don't know how to respond because you're hijacked by fear, because as far as your mind concerned, it's in a situation that was similar to a situation you were once in that you know, didn't find okay because there was danger in that moment. So it's getting the mind to come up to date and say, wait a minute, you're not 13-year-old you anymore, and you've learnt from that, and all of that is okay, but it's time for the mind to come up to date, and then bringing it up to date.
That's good. I like it. What would you say are the key differences between hypnotherapy and other types of therapy available to people? And do you think different things work for different people?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think there's one therapy in the world that is okay for everybody, because we're more interesting than that. You know, there is no one size fits all therapy for everybody. And also, you know, hypnotherapy, again, it's when people say to me, is hypnotherapy good, or does hypnotherapy work? I'd say it's a bit like getting a haircut. Is getting a haircut good? Depends which hairdresser you go to, depends on the relationship you have with that hairdresser, depends on if that hairdresser understands what you want to do with your hair. It's not just, is hypnotherapy good? Because it's such a personal relationship you have with that person that they have to trust you, they have to believe that you know what's going to work, and it can't be that black and white. And as for different types of therapy, you know, talking therapies work for people, they also don't work for people. As does CBT, as does many things. It also depends on where that person is as well, because, you know, I often get people come and see me and they say, oh, my friend in one session, you know, blah, blah, blah. And I've had many, many one session wonders, and I've had many that weren't. And that's okay, because, you know, they weren't at the point where they were able to be a one session wonder, because they still had work to do to even get to the point of where they were ready to change. Sometimes you are moving somebody towards being okay with the idea of change. So they think they're super ready and they're just ready to go. But in reality, there's more resistance than they had realized. So it might be 2 sessions or 3 sessions. Maybe it's 6 sessions.
I mean, it's a lot less serious, but I say that when we get a new client in the barbershop, usually by the 3rd haircut, I understand the hair, how to work with it, what they like, what they don't like. And it's probably similar, whereas, you know, people want to get comfortable with you before they start to, I'm sure you see change as the sessions go on in terms of how close you are to them as a person as well.
You do, and you're, it's a process of understanding that person, because I don't want to reduce somebody into a formula where in one session, like, I've got you pegged, I know exactly. No, I want to understand what comes up when we do the work, and how you explain to me you're experiencing changes, and the more, like you say, the more you know the hair, it's the easier it is to cut, and the more they understand that you understand their hair, the easier it is. So it's a relationship,
and you have to build on it.
Yeah.
So I guess moving on from that, but it's like barbers are somewhat compared to therapists,
Yeah.
especially lately. The rising campaigns aiming for men to talk more about their mental health is a big issue. Absolutely,
it is.
Do you find working with men differently to women?
Yeah, it is different. It is different. But in what way are you? In what way do you mean?
Like, is it more complicated, or the guys find it more difficult to open up, or?
Well, that can be an issue as well, and sometimes men that you set up the conditions to be right for trust, but even then, it can be difficult for men of my age sitting across from them thinking, oh, I'm still talking to a woman, and something in my brain is saying, tell her the things, and that's what you're here for, but somewhere in my brain I don't want to be seen in this way. So it's managing that, but that's not always the case. That can be one of things that comes up, or one of the things that, but it really depends on the person. If someone really wants to change and they're committed to their change, that none of that matters. They just want to talk about what's going on and move through it.
Are there any pieces of advice that you'd offer to men who struggle to talk about their issues?
If it's a struggle to talk to a therapist, or if you don't believe you need a therapist, talk to a friend. Everybody is going through something. Is none of us perfect, despite what, social media tells you, or despite what, the world outside tells you. Everybody's going through something, and everybody's gone through something similar to what you're going through. And there's no shame in what you're going through. If it feels painful and it feels heavy, even if it's not as heavy as the person sitting next to you, if it's heavy for you, it's heavy, it's real, it exists. So speak to somebody and take steps to getting the help that you need. It's normally simpler than you believe it to be.
Sometimes it is about just getting it off your chest.
Yeah, just talking to a friend and having them say, oh, I've got that. And you go, oh gosh, thank God. Or, I've experienced that. Or I think my friend Jim knows somebody who's had that. It's the secrecy and the keeping it quiet that, and the thinking that we're odd or different or weird, or the ruminating on that is never a good place to be. Just airing out your pains.
I'm sure you find humans super interesting.
Yeah, I do.
What would you say you've learned most about, over the course of your career? What have you learned most about people? I know it's quite a big question to...
That really everything. I think the more I work, the simpler it becomes. In that it sort of always comes back down to the same things, and it's a lost trust in themselves, which is, the root of most pains is that the person feels out of touch with their trust, and it's normally because trust is broken by something in their environment or a person in their life. But then what you'll hear is that they'll talk about how they knew that they should have acted differently, or they knew that they should have not trusted. And when that's broken, that's when the anxiety is really rife, because it's, well, if I can't trust myself, I can't navigate through life. And then I spend all day long thinking about what's best or what I should be doing, but I can't trust myself to make decisions. So then life just becomes exhausting. So you get stuck, because if I can't trust myself and I can't make decisions, I can't do anything, so I can't take action. And awareness and action are the two most important things for change. So you need to take action to get out of your current situation, but if you're too afraid to take action, you're trapped.
I find that, like, when I speak to a lot of people about it, a lot of people's trauma kind of stems from childhood.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Is that the more common than it coming from adulthood? Most of it's coming from like a long time ago.
Well, in adulthood, you've kind of got ideas about, your brain is developed differently, so you have more awareness and you have more understanding. Whereas as a child, you're making quite simplistic equations about, so if a parent says, "Oh, not now," you go, "Well, that's because my dad doesn't love me." And then your mind looks for evidence that you're unloved, and then you carry that until you're an adult, and it doesn't get changed. So, but as an adult, if someone said to us, "Oh, not now," you go, "Oh, he's busy," or I get it, But we don't realise that those moments in childhood and the simplistic equations that we're coming to, we carry them because the unconscious doesn't just change either. Our brain changes all the time, and we can walk around the street and go, "Oh, I like that haircut. I think I'm going to get..." But your survival isn't dependent on a haircut. And you sort of know logically that hair...
Sometimes, maybe. I'm joking.
Well, you feel rubbish if you had a terrible haircut, and you might feel like you can't leave the house because you'll be judged by your friends, and therefore an element of survival is challenged, because if your friends don't speak to you anymore, that's very painful for us. But your mind doesn't just go, "Hey, that alarm that we've kept ringing to keep us away from speaking in public, we're just going to be cool with that now," because it doesn't just naturally update things linked to your survival unless it's challenged, and it can see it doesn't make sense for us to hold on to this. So it's why people will carry pains that they've had since they were 2 up until, I've had clients that were 85 that are still doing things that affected them from when they were 7, because the mind didn't just update itself.
I know you lived in Spain for a long time, and you are half Venezuelan.
Yep.
In what other ways does travel play a role in your life, if any?
I love traveling. I wish I had traveled more. I think travel is always good for your mind. I think it, always challenges ideas that just seeing people live differently from how you live, or even places that aren't that different, or but it's sort of subtly similar but not, I find very challenging and just interesting to see. I just think travel could never not be interesting. What about you?
I love traveling for that as well, just to meet different cultures and different people. Like you say, it's sometimes it's weird when you go to a place that's not so much of a... It's not like a culture shock.
Yeah.
It's similar in some ways, like Australia, but it's so different at the same time. Like,
I've never been to Australia, but America always really...
Yeah.
Because you think, well, we're sort of... there's similarities, but it's just...
So different.
So different. And even in America, when you drive, from one state to the next state, and you're like, God, it's really weird how different it got in a really, well, not short space of time, because it takes ages to... Just how vast it is and how massive.
You realise how small our little island is once you actually get off it.
That's the thing as well, to give you an awareness of, and this is impossible as well, but more of an awareness of space or size of how big the world is, because I think we're always, so much in our world tries to warp us into thinking that the world is so tiny, or that there's not enough for everybody, or that, it sort of plays with our perception of what the world is like, and sort of has us thinking, it's just really easy to sort of buy into what we're told rather than what we can see. And even though when I'm traveling in America, I can't see a sense of how big the world is, but you get them. I don't know.
It's so big, yet so small.
Yeah.
Yeah. From a scientific perspective, anyway. I always watch them videos on YouTube where they zoom out from the world and they show us how big the universe is, and
the sea. The sea. I would like to think about the sea a lot, except not so much these days because I get a bit sad thinking about plastic.
Oh, what you meant just about the sea in general?
Just makes me sad.
Just all that water. Yeah, but the fact that we it just blows my mind. Even the fact that we exist.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
what really? Are we going for the really, really big questions?
I mean, like that's not even a question I wrote down, but it's kind of like the fact that, like, what are the odds?
I know.
And like, we're experiencing it now.
I know.
And not before. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Or have we experienced it before?
Yeah. I always say this: it's a simulation.
Gosh.
Potentially, it could not be. You're like looking off into the distance.
It's just too much right now.
What is this?
My brain is about to explode.
Let's go back to travel before we're not even high or anything.
Right.
I guess you kind of gone onto it there, but what are the most interesting things you've learned while traveling? Mine's usually about people, but what's yours?
Yeah. Gosh, I'm really thinking about it. Most interesting thing I've learnt while travelling.
From one side of London to the other doesn't count. I know you get in that London trap where you
I don't know. I think sometimes when I'm thinking about, because I always get a bit sad thinking about how I can't go to Venezuela. And that sounded really selfish the way. I mean, obviously Venezuela is in a terrible state, and my family's there, and it's just a horrible, terrifying.
We don't
mess.
hear much about it, do we?
No.
Like a lot of countries in the world, it's all a lot of these real issues are kind of kept away from us in the media.
I mean, Venezuela's like the most mineral-rich country in the world, so I can't even imagine that I have an idea of what it's all about, but we're not given any information about what it's about. It's just ego and all horrible things. But we're not really informed about what's going on. But I think when I think about travel, I think about Venezuela and how much I miss being able to go there.
And you're just not able to, and there's not in the foreseeable future.
It's just impossible. I mean, you hear stories about. I don't know that I would trust, not my own family, but I can't trust someone not to mention that I'm coming there, or because I don't know. Just in my head, it's such a cloud. I don't have any recent information of being there, and I just think it's just so dangerous.
When's the last time you were there?
Like when I was 13.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
So
it's a really long time.
10 years.
Yes, exactly. Nice.
I guess I feel quite lucky I can still go to Chile.
Yeah.
And there's not many. I mean, we've had our issues there. A dictatorship.
Yeah.
That's why my dad actually left.
Right.
But that's obviously not in my lifetime. No, I mean, there's always problems in South America.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of issues in the past with South America, and it's always like the US are involved somehow as well.
Always.
Yeah. There's always like a underlying political reason why, not that I know too much about it, but I watch Narcos, so basically I'm an expert. Would you say your upbringing and having a cultured mix has not only influenced you, but your career and how you work with people? Maybe more compassionate, maybe warmer?
Yeah, it has. Definitely has. I think I always felt like a little bit of an outsider growing up, and a bit weird and a bit chubby and wrong, and I think all of my issues has helped me be a better therapist. Yeah.
It's funny. When you say weird, did you mean just like the half Latin, half English mix?
Just, yeah.
It's
not that it's a weird mix. It was just different from what I grew up in. And, now we live in a time where there's body acceptance is a normal thing.
Yeah.
And thank goodness for that. Like, it's incredible. I never thought I'd see in my lifetime that it was okay to not be like all the magazines said you had to be, and like blonde and really, really, really slim.
Yeah, like me.
Yeah, like you.
I mean, I can't speak for that, but I definitely know that being a half Latin, especially in Liverpool where there's not many Latin people, it was definitely different. I didn't really feel like I belonged in any group.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it was like the Asian kids and black kids, and then there was me.
Yeah.
I didn't really fit anywhere.
But I don't have and I still don't have a sort of South American network of friends. I don't really have any South American. I'm just thinking, do I have any South American? You, but but do you do I have any female South American friends? I don't think I do. That's sad.
Just glance to the camera.
Be my friend. No, I'm just thinking. Actually, I don't, because I was never part of any. Yeah, there weren't groups or.
What part of London did you grow up in?
Well, I grew up in South London,
yeah.
so Vauxhall, Wandsworth, but I also went to boarding school.
Oh, you shipped away.
Yeah.
That's why you were probably an outsider.
Yeah, and that definitely helped my therapy, because I really, really, really hated boarding school.
Oh, so
I hated it more than anything.
So you would say it's not a good thing to do?
I don't know. Some people love it and think it's the greatest thing ever in their life. I was completely miserable.
I can't imagine liking being away all the time.
I mean, some people really, I hear people say, "Oh, it was the greatest time of my life. I really thrived," but I definitely.
Well, what are they comparing it to? Unless they've done both.
I don't know. I found it really lonely. I found it really scary. And also just people weren't very happy. It was a breeding ground for quite miserable, sad people who just sort of, when people are miserable and sad, they just go around being miserable and sad and taking it out on everybody else. And it just sort of breeds.
So we have it. Don't go to boarding school, basically.
Some people love it, and I'm always really surprised when I hear. But again, it's a perception thing, because I know that I have good memories of boarding school. I just don't know where they are.
Yeah,
they must be in there somewhere.
They're in one room in your house.
They're in one really small room, and sometimes I'll meet up with a friend from boarding school, and okay, I remember having nice moments with this person. But for me, it's just a sort of. Bleh.
In your own spare time, aside from working with clients and being a transformational life coach, what do you like to do?
What do I like to do? All sorts of things. I actually think about work probably 85% of my time. So I'm always, I don't know, I like to go to museums. I like to go to gardens. I'm sort of a bit of an old lady. I'm always interested in knowing more about things related to work and how I can be better at work. And actually, in my spare time, I spend a lot of time planning future projects, making ideas about albums and things that I want to do more of. Or I'm really interested in hypnosis and music and combining those two things.
Am I allowed to mention your album?
Yes.
Yeah.
I can, because I get really excited about it.
Yeah. Just tell us more about it. I didn't know if I could bring it up.
Oh yeah, sure. I made an album. It's a sort of 7-track meditative suite. This sounds fabulously pretentious.
It's quite alternative as well. The music and the.
I made it with 2 friends of mine who are in a band, and I'm sorry, but I'm horrible at talking about music. I sound like when I really sound like
they make the beats.
Electronic music duo. Make contemporary sounds. They're called Desert, and they play at Sonar, and they're pretty cool. Yeah. I approached them. So when I split up with my ex, I was with him for 10 years, and that was it was a tricky moment. And I had, for about 5 years, I'd been planning that I wanted to do a project with music and hypnosis. and I actually made a PowerPoint presentation, and I sat them down and I was like, look at my PowerPoint presentation.
Do you have a pie chart?
I pretty much did have a pie chart. It's things like hypnosis. What is it? What's out there already? Yeah, it's but they really liked the idea, because actually at first it was going to be about emotional processing, so changing emotions, which is something I'm working on now. But it became this kind of journey. So it takes you on the whole of a hypnosis journey and what you would do with a client, but you can listen to it as a modular. So after you've listened to it as an experience, you can listen to it in modules. Or just say, right, I need to build the trust that I have in myself again, or I need to reconnect back to people. So each track has a slightly different function.
It's out now to buy?
No, it is.
I've been waiting a long time.
Gosh, I know. It's just long. This is a really long process it's a long process of getting people to understand what I'm trying to do. And I think that this is going to be so normal in a very short space of time, but people are more wary of, they're like, wait till someone else does it and then I'll be interested in what you're doing. It's like, no, I will do it. I will do it because I've got it and it's great and I'm really proud of it. And but yeah, I've got a record label in Barcelona who want to do something with it.
Okay, that would be really cool.
Yeah,
I have listened to it, but I have this issue where I just fall asleep to anything.
Yeah, that was a big issue while I was making the changes to it. So I was like, okay, I've got 3 hours and this afternoon I'm going to listen to all the little changes or anything and I'd wake up 3 hours later and be like, God damn it, my 3 hours I put aside.
Hypnotizing yourself.
yeah. Yeah. It took ages to correct and make the changes, and I've actually lately I've been experimenting by listening to it. I go down to a place near me that has a meditation lamp. It's called the Ajna meditation lamp. And it's this really cool place near me called U-Float, and they have flotation tanks. And I've been listening to the album On the Light, and I go to places that...
With that while you're in the float tank?
No, so they have in a separate... Oh, sorry. They have in a separate room this lamp. It's just a lamp. And it's here over the eyes, and then you ask for different settings. So they've got alpha, theta, gamma, beta, delta, lambda.
All the frequencies.
I think, those are all the... And then you say, I want lambda for... lambda is the heaviest setting. It's for really... It's called the celestial setting, because you go to really big places. So the first time I was like, give me that setting. I want lambda. And I listened to the 2 tracks, and I was like out in space, dancing with whales.
What?
Yeah, I was having a great old time.
But how does this lamp work? What in terms of how does it outsource? Like, how does it send out the frequencies with light?
Yeah, it's with light. The movement of the light stimulates patterns in the brain.
Sounds super interesting.
It's really interesting, and what's funny as well is that Tim, who owns U-Float, he's listened to it on the light a few times, and he's like, it just syncs up. Everything syncs up, and it's like the light syncs up with the recording. But then you think, these two things aren't connected. So I listened to the album. No, I listened to 2 different tracks, and both on the same setting. So I thought, okay, am I going to see the same colours or the same pictures? And I saw completely different colours, completely different pictures. Wow. In one of the listenings, it was gold and yellows and oranges, and it was like I was on the sun, because that track talks about the sun and a place of trust. And and then on the last track, which is where you're sort of floating out in the universe, and the stars are representative of people in your life. I could see the stars, and I saw my mum, and she was really solid. I'm like, Mum, what are you doing here? It's really big.
Get out, Mum.
Get out, Mum. And then a minute later, I was like outside the sea, and I was dancing with this really big whale. Like, this is a great Friday morning. There's a huge whale here. It's really...
Sounds profound.
Yeah, you need to, next time you're in London, the Ajna lamp.
Ajna? How do you know how you spell that?
AJNA.
Oh, that's...
And they have a DMT setting on it as well.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I know. So next time you come to London,
I'll have to try it.
I'll set it up so you listen to the album on the DMT setting.
Have you done a float as well?
No,
You haven't done it.
That's next.
Yeah.
That's what I want to try next.
I've done it twice. There's a new flotation place in Liverpool. I think I've done it 2 or 3 times now. And the first time I just got super nauseous.
Right.
And the second time I had like a anti-sickness tablet to like, because I thought it might just because I get like seasick sometimes.
Right.
And it was pretty interesting. Yeah,
I really, really want to try it. That's next.
It's hard to switch off, especially if you find it difficult to meditate and calm your mind, because it is just silent. Well, you can go in silence, and the second time I said, "Can you leave music on light for me?" And I found it a lot better. So I guess it's for certain people.
I think as well, it's quite helpful to have something to focus on, because so the light is 15 minutes, but one of the tracks that I was listening to was about 13 minutes. So then there were 2 minutes towards the end where I didn't have any sound, but my mind was just left to its own devices with the light. I mean, I was seeing really random stuff that wasn't particularly helpful or meditative. I thought, this is what's great about having the album, is it gives me a focus in this moment while my mind is so stimulated, and a sort of place to go that I can really concentrate on, and they're all messages that I'm really connected to. So yeah, it's better with my album, basically, is what I'm saying.
Out now.
Out now, except it's not.
It's not out now.
Soon.
Out soon. I think when it comes to calming the mind, it is always good to have something to focus on. That's why I say, I usually find stuff like mantra chanting or transcendental meditations easier for me to do than just sitting there in silence. Yeah. I think I need a lot of practice with that. Do you do any types of meditations yourself? Yeah, lots and lots. At the moment, I'm doing the Abundance Challenge, DipCHyp's Abundance Challenge. But I mean, I've got lots of therapist friends, and I've got folders of things that are interesting. But to be honest, the thing I would say I mainly listen to, and this sounds like terrible self-promotion, but it's actually my album, because out soon but because the messages are so in my mind that it's something that now I just listen to, and it sort of takes me back to a good place. I listen to a lot of the music from the retreat which also takes me to a really good place, but I tend to listen to things that are already quite connected somewhere in my mind, so that I can kind of instantly be transported back to that moment in time in that really clear, good headspace. Yeah, what I was going to ask next is, I'm sure you've read a lot, or you read a lot. You just said you're doing the Abundance Challenge. Yeah. Have you got any books that you kind of would say has changed your life, or that you generally recommend to people, whether it's spiritual or... Yeah, I mean, I tend to recommend, it depends, it depends if it's a client or if it's somebody who just likes to talk about, things. But, if it's a client that wants to understand the process of what we're doing, then I'll normally recommend that they read Trevor Sylvester's Cognitive Hypnotherapy book, which is What's That About and How Can I Use It, which is a kind of classic. Like a go-to book. It just explains his work. And then... I like to recommend things that my friends have written. So I'll recommend my friend Hazel Gale's book, which is now called Mind Monsters. I recommend Dawn Walton, who's another cognitive hypnotherapist. She wrote a just very short book, which is Caveman Rules of Survival, which is just it's really short, and it explains the 3 principles of the subconscious and what the fears are about, and it's explained really nicely and simply, and gives good examples so people can kind of get a better idea of, that's why I do what I do, and not make it about a sort of massive thing that's wrong with them. Just this is a primitive behavior. Is that kind of like the chimp paradox? It's a kind of similar vibe. Yeah, it is. I totally different, but I found the chimp paradox a bit clunky, though. I didn't enjoy reading it very much. It's not super small, is it? No, it's a great book. It's just some books I find more enjoyable
than others, as we all do.
Yeah.
Deviate. Deviate? Yeah, that's a book that I read recently about perception. I can't remember who wrote it. I'm terrible at things like this. I can't remember what the name of the author is, but that's great. Just giving examples of how fascinating perception is. And, I think one of the examples that he brings up is how there was a study that Russians see more shades of red than any other group, because of how much red is discussed in and them. So it just gives examples of how fascinating perception is, and how our perception is adapted to our survival. Yeah, that's it.
I was waiting for something.
No, that was it. And what other books?
And it's funny you say that. This is totally unrelated,
Yeah.
but when you said about red and that red being in the culture, and you see it a lot, most of my friends and people I've met now see barbershops all the time.
Yeah.
And they always send me pictures, because like as soon as they know I look at barbershops all the time, they're like, oh, here's a barbershop. Oh, Miguel likes barbershops. There's a photo. Do you know what I mean? It's weird. This is a smaller scale. This is me versus Russia.
No, but that is what is so important, is what people don't realise, is that your mind tunes into what it says matters. And this is really obvious. We all know this to an extent. But think about that from the point of view of someone with an issue, how basically your mind warps to make your issue a bigger deal and to bring your attention back to your issue. So you think about your issue all the time, and then your issue completely takes over your life, because everything that you're looking at is tuned into reminding you about that. So you feed what you focus on, and you become what you think, really. So getting your mind to heal whatever it is saying, this is important, think about this all day long, your survival is at risk, so I believe I need to remind you about this all day long. How is that getting in the way of you living a better life? It definitely is, because it's stopping you. If all day long you're being reminded that, hey, don't do that thing because that could be dangerous for us.
Yeah, we're definitely more fearless as kids.
Yeah, I went to a slide the other day. This is not a normal thing I do, but it was really fun. There's a big slide in Gloucester.
Gardens and slides.
I love slides. Spend my weekend on the slide. But I went to this place in Gloucester with my boyfriend, and he said, it's a really, really big, really scary slide, and you're going to have to go on it when I get there. And I was like, oh my God, I really don't want to. I don't love the idea of doing this. And he was like, I'm going to conquer my fear and I'm going to go on it. He didn't. I flung myself over the slide to show a small child who's very, very afraid not to be afraid. So I felt very, very brave. But and I keep getting this vision of that day, there were like tiny children, really small. I swear I saw a baby fling itself over the side. But they were so fearless, and they just like lemmings, just flunk, 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 flunk. I was like, God, it's unbelievable. And children are so unafraid of anything. It's us that, we get all these messages, and then these messages stop us. So sometimes you have to empty out the folder and say, half of these messages I don't need, or they're not true, or they're not valid, and challenge yourself. Most people don't want to challenge their messages because they think they serve a purpose. Most of them are nonsense.
Do you think kind of living your life a little bit fearless is kind of one of the secrets to success, but maybe not on a financial level, but just in fulfillment?
Again, fearlessness is such an abstract concept as well, because we all need some fear. We can't be completely fearless. If not, we'd walk into traffic. But it's establishing what fears get in your way and which ones stop you from being the version of yourself you want to be, and also just being more honest with yourself about your fears. I think when we're afraid of something, we don't want to look at any part of it. We don't want to even open the folder to it because it could consume us, or just look at it, just sit with it, figure out what it's really about.
Is there anything you wish you would have known before you started out your career?
Everything. No. Yeah, plenty of things. I wish. But then I it sounds really trite and cliche, but I wouldn't change. I don't think I would change anything. I think I had to learn in that way, in that order. I think, what would I change? I would change sort of more business related things. I would change, even when I'd started working on myself, I think I still lacked belief and sort of bought into the idea of, so many coaches and therapists are doing better than me because blah, blah, blah. And, I need to find the formula and I need to find their formula. And, there's so much, coaches out there who sell, 6-figure formulas to success and blah, 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 and all of that stuff. And you kind of want to understand it better. And then you speak to a lot of them and they're like, hey, most nights I eat pot noodles and my lighting bill's been switched off. And I think I kind of just wish I'd trusted myself more in the beginning.
I think a lot of people in any industry kind of make it and fake it till they make it.
Yeah. And especially in this industry where it's all, fake it till you make it is sort of one of the things that we're told is a really important thing to tell clients. Like, I don't always necessarily agree with that. I think you do need to set up a case for evidence and get them to tune into moments in their life where they're successful and understand that and study it. But I don't think it's ever a good idea for you to pretend that you are somebody that you're not.
Yeah, there's so many advertisements on Facebook for like people selling business courses, property courses, even like life coaching and transformational stuff. And they're like, you could be earning as much as me. And they've just hired a Ferrari for the day to put it in the video. And
it's so much nonsense
cringy,
out there.
it?
It's really cringy. It's sometimes I find this industry pretty cringy. So you've got to find the like real ones in it and hang out with them. And I know some really cool therapists and some really nice ones.
Do you know many life coaches as well? A lot of people work online now, which is great.
Yeah, I know plenty of most of the life coaches I know are cognitive hypnotherapists as well. And yeah, I know, yeah.
Have you ever thought about just working online, or do you like that personal face-to-face?
I like personal face-to-face. I mean, I do probably 50-50 online and face-to-face. I don't know if I would ever want to completely leave seeing it, working with clients face-to-face. Yeah, I enjoy it.
I think we live in the day and age, I mean, not necessarily just in like hypnotherapy, but where people have the opportunity to work online. It's pretty cool. So many people live all around the world and stay on the road. And
it's amazing. You can work with clients who have agoraphobia, who can't leave the house or are too afraid to leave the house, or people just don't have access to you because they're in a different part of the country. I see people all over the world, in America and Australia.
Whereas like the bulk of your clients in the UK, or
the bulk of my clients are in the UK, but then maybe 20% are in the States.
Okay.
Yeah, and then somewhere in Italy, Canada, France.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
It's really nice.
Work on different time zones.
Yeah.
Has social media had a big impact on the way you run your business?
Yeah, I mean, social media has always been around since I started my business, but I would say that Instagram is my favourite. I don't really use Facebook anymore. I don't post anything on there. Twitter, again, I still can't really understand it. I keep thinking I'm sending private messages to people that get seen to everybody. I'm not really sure what I'm doing there. And then, what's the other one? LinkedIn. I don't really like LinkedIn.
It's not ready for clients, that is it? Like, it's
all right. It's supposed to be the sort of secret, secret formula of, but I don't like it. I like Instagram because a lot of my clients follow me on Instagram. It's a good way of keeping in touch with them, and it's so visual. It's just my favorite one.
Do you align your life with any spiritual values or morals?
Yeah, definitely. Do you want to hear them?
Yeah. Oh, no. Yeah, please expand on the answer.
I mean, again, spirituality is such a big concept. I'm not trying to be difficult, but
I know it's a huge concept, but like, you know, some people are religious, some people are spiritual. I know spiritual, like you say, is such a big subject.
It's such a big word. And also, what does that mean? You know, do I go to church on a Sunday, or do I
don't know. I think if you're spiritual, like you believe in spirit, you are spirit. You know,
I believe in that.
In souls, or I mean, not necessarily. I'm not saying this is like the one size fits all, but it could be anything just from that. Like believing we are a soul, a being outside of, you know, a body.
Yeah.
All the way up to I go to church every Sunday, or I'm part of a religious cult.
No, I'm not part of a religious cult, but I am. I do. The thing is, I believe in the things that I believe, and then, you know, I try not to let anything, you know, any of my own spiritual beliefs into my work, because that would be me. I feel like it'd be me imposing my views onto people. But I think if people share my views, we tend to work better together. Not because I'm, you know, like, hey, I like you, I'm gonna, no, but just as a connection about what we are and what's going on here. And I don't have any answers. I just know that I've lived with spiritual ideas, and I've lived without spiritual ideas, and I happen to enjoy life more believing in the things that I believe in, and in something more than myself, and something more than this. I think there's, but what those things are.
Do you believe in something, I guess, after or before?
I don't even know if I believe in something after or before. I just believe in something. I believe that there's things going on around us. You know, our eyes can only see what they can see. And, you know, and a bat can see things that we can't see. A dog can see things that we can't see. And
all tuned into different frequencies.
We're all tuned into different things. And just because I can't see it, it'd be so arrogant of me to assume that because I can't see it, feel it, that it doesn't exist. Because my eyes aren't the only eyes that, you know, even if we were to compare our own experience of the colours that we see, they would be different. So how am I to know what's there?
Well, Russians only see red.
Yeah, only red.
Only
everything
red.
is red.
Yeah.
Many shades of red. But that's the thing. How can you be so sure?
Yeah. But exactly, like if I said purple to you, how do you explain purple? Oh, it's purple.
No, exactly.
It's kind of like, it looks like purple.
But that's, you know, I just can't be so certain. So why not just, it doesn't mean that, well, because I don't know, I'm just going to believe what I want. But I've had, you know, in certain situations, it's not even evidence, but I've been closer to ideas that, and talking about this stuff is so abstract, I struggle actually to find the words, and it makes me sound like I don't know what I'm talking about, which
Explain
actually I
colours.
don't. Yeah, I don't know explain all the colours, but it's so, I believe the things that I believe, and I don't believe that I'm alone.
It's a nice way to put it. It's simple as well. Well, we actually met on a ayahuasca retreat.
You did.
What first drew you to it?
Well, so I'm part of a group of therapists. I'm part of a cult. I'm part of a group of therapists that, you know, we talk about ideas, and I think there's always something in that kind of collective, you know, in the collective unconscious, when there are certain ideas, they come back to you, and if you're ready to receive them, you'll be interested in them. And when I was writing my album, that last year I was going through quite a lot. My dad was about to die. I was splitting up with my ex of 10 years. I'd been diagnosed with endometriosis. It was just like, oh, this is going to be one of those years. And I was becoming much more interested in magic and, you know, things that were less of the sciencey bit of hypnotherapy, which I'd spent a long time studying. And I'd also rejected the other parts of it. But like, actually, I need to come back to these parts that I've neglected. And, you know, with magic comes the discussion of psychedelics and other realms of consciousness. And so, yeah, a couple of therapist friends of mine had been talking about trying ayahuasca. And I was originally supposed to go with them. But it was funny, actually, there was the retreat that they went on was on the same day of something that I had been waiting for many months. So it was almost like a sort of universal choice. Like you've literally got one date in the calendar that's taken, everything else is free. Are you going to choose this or are you going to choose that? And I chose the other thing. And then I ended up coming to it in October so what drew me was maybe them telling me that it was going to be so eye-opening. They'd had incredible experiences and I just was... I felt like my moment to, but I was really wary as well, knowing that I knew that my dad I was still grieving. He'd only died, it was coming up to a year. I thought it's going to be really hectic. I'm going to be put through the ringer. And I was. It really was. Yeah.
And I guess if you had have gone on the first one, we wouldn't have met. You wouldn't be here right now. Isn't that funny how the world works?
And the thing is, I think I was never supposed to go with them because I know what I'm like. If I'm with other people, I'm going to be worrying about them, thinking about them. It would have been almost too distracting, and I had to be there, concentrating on my own stuff.
Yeah, even when you are there, they kind of say like if you come as a couple or as friends, just don't get involved with each other during the journey.
Yeah,
which is good. But like you say, if people are there that you might be thinking, oh, are they okay? It's not like it's not a walk in the park,
No, and I wouldn't have had that experience of feeling, what we talked about, not being alone. I felt very alone, but also very, very supported, and I knew I wasn't alone. But if I'd gone with friends, it would have been like, oh, I'm not alone because I'm with them. Whereas I knew I wasn't alone because I had the sort of, you build this incredible connection with strangers in less than 24 hours because you've gone on this mad thing together and you've all sort of silently been in this room figuring out your biggest stuff, and you are somehow now connected forever.
All being in each other's space, all going through this wild journey through this, I don't know, it feels like it is a collective energy in the room that even though everyone's having their own different experiences, that if one person wasn't there, it might create an unbalance.
No, absolutely. And you almost form this psychic connection which you tune into because everything's happening in silence. You almost communicate in movement or in energy or in, I don't know, it's impossible to explain later, but I just remember having this experience with one of the girls started her period on the last day, and in that space you almost feel like you're in the cave, like you're back in the cave, and you're whether women would speak with just looks or with silence or just a knowing of what's going on in someone else's body. And I found myself outside so I'm probably 15 years older than the girl who had her period, and then there's another one of the people that watches over you, and we all found ourselves outside while she was outside, and we just went to sort of we touched our stomachs and she touched her stomach, and it was like, are we all talking about our periods, or are we all just sort of, what's happening here? It was very strange. It was one of those moments that I always think about, like, we're so magical when we're quiet and we all connect back to each other. I think we can all talk with each other.
Yeah, I mean, I think
but it's a hard thing to explain. As soon as you get back to the city and everything's noisy again, you're like, wait a minute, I sound like a cliche. I sound like the person that's just, done this, and now I've seen behind the curtain, and sort of everyone's like,
Yeah, if you haven't been there, it's kind of difficult to...
It's difficult to explain because it is so abstract and it's so... Yeah, it's a really hard thing to explain.
Yeah, intuition's pretty intense as well. Like you say, like, are we talking to each other? Can we talk to each other? And I think deep down we all probably can, or we know things that, intuition's pretty strong. I think I talked about this in the last one where, like, you think about someone you haven't seen for a year, 2 years, and then you see them the next day.
Yeah.
Or they call,
Or how we are with animals. With animals, we just... I know my dog so well. I just look at her and I say, oh, she's got a stomachache this evening. And, you know, maybe she hasn't given me any really obvious signs, or I say, oh, she's thirsty, she needs a drink. And you just tune into them because you have to, because of the silence. And
I wish that was the case with my dog. She just shouts at me.
Oh no, she just barks. Well, Hossa's so silent. You know, Hossa will die before she'll sort of make too much of a fuss about certain things. I once found her when I first got her. She was caught up in my handbag, and I came out. She had the cord around her neck, and I completely freaked out. And I was like, "Why didn't she bark?" And she was just like, "Oh, I'll just die rather than complain." So silly, but yeah. So you just have to read them. I think there's something in that. I don't know. I can't fully explain. I don't have, like I said, I don't have who has all the answers. But
Yeah. Not me.
Not you. Do you?
No.
Okay.
So has the ayahuasca experience shaped your life at all?
Yeah, absolutely. I think because I had such an intense, I know you had a pretty big out there experience, but we had quite different experiences. I had a very linear journey which was
Yours
all
went
about
on quite a long time too.
Well, I'm pretty sensitive to things, and I took a very small dose, but I was, you know, till 7 a.m. Everyone else was sort of eating soup and dancing by a fire, and I was like, I'm still working through this. It's still happening. And mine was all about the death of my dad. I had split up with my ex about 4 months before that happened, and my dad and my ex had been very close. He'd always been like a son to him, and I hadn't realised that I was carrying so much guilt, thinking that by me splitting up with my ex, my dad, who didn't do very well, would change. And even when I split up with my ex, my dad was like, you need to get back with him. Yeah, I can't really deal with this change. I was like, oh, you know, I knew he wouldn't be fine with it, but I hadn't realised how I was still carrying the guilt of it was my fault that these things had happened. So when it was saying you killed them both, I was like, wow, this is what this is about. And I just cried and cried and cried and cried and cried. And I thought, actually, I'm never going to stop crying. This is just me now. I'm going to cry forever.
Stuck.
Until I run out of fluid. And then it sort of changed, and it became very epic, and it was like it had to happen. People have to die. This was part of your path. And it was showing me this sort of montage of all of the events that had happened, and it was really, really, really intense. So how has it changed my life? I mean, it changed everything. It realised that guilt is a sort of go-to, especially as South American guilt is a real thing, you know. I have to be aware of guilt and carrying guilt. And it really helped me process my dad's death, which I think I would have got there eventually, but it really sort of moved forward the process and moved forward because I felt like I'd spent a weekend with him. I was talking with him, and you know, people say, oh, whatever, you know, blah blah blah, whatever, they want to make sense of it and they want to understand it, but I'm actually happy not to make sense of it and just say whatever it was amazing, and it helped. So it was useful.
Sounds pretty wild.
It was pretty wild.
Yeah.
It was pretty wild. Yeah, so it's, you know, again, people listening and thinking, oh, I've really got to, well, I don't think hearing you killed them both makes them want to jump it. It's not like that for everybody.
Where do I sign up?
But, you know, it's so individual, and everybody goes through such a different, but they say, you know, that the medicine will give you not what you want, but what you need. And I needed that, whatever that was. I needed to. And when I left there, I felt like 10 kilos lighter. Honestly, just felt like emotionally.
The tea is gone.
God, and also just like, oh, sorry, I hit the table. But there, on the second night, I remember feeling like little flaps of skin were sort of releasing stress and tension. Like I could feel like I'd have a thought and then be like, and sort of some knot had undone in me, and then my body was sort of flowing back up again. It was amazing. Really, really.
I guess, what do you see for the future of Transphenomenon? JessicaBoston.com.
Well, what I want to do more of, and what I really enjoy doing, is making recordings, and I want to do more experiments with that. Me and my boyfriend, the producer, Can I say his name? Does that sound come under?
I'm joking, of course.
Oh, just Dre the ghost. He would like me to have said his name. I imagine you can edit that out. I'm so awkward talking about these things.
Dre the ghost.
Yes.
Dre the ghost. He's not a ghost. I met him before. He's a real person.
Well, we've talked about doing because you know collabs, yeah, and also it's so cool because he's got a studio. I can like work on the projects that I want to work on and do.
What type of music is it?
He actually mainly does like trap and hip hop and rap.
You can do like
But you know what? This is an idea that I've had for such a long time.
Trap hypnotherapy.
I wanted to do like trap meditations and just experiment with that and experiment with voice and sound and.
I'll twerk in the video if you want.
Do you want to twerk in the video?
Yeah, I'll twerk in the video.
Okay.
Me and Josefina.
Oh my God,
the dog.
Dream.
Yeah.
But also because music is so hypnotic, and you know, how do we remember all the words to all the songs that we've ever heard, and how do they go into some part of our brain? So I want to, you know, there's something in it. I learnt the times tables through a song because I liked the songs.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I still remember them, and they were really catchy.
I still need to learn them.
I try and find that. There's a tape that I used to listen to, and I still hear it, and I used to dance to it, and I think that has always been an obsession for me, and I want to kind of recreate that and think, well, you know, that's what my album does for me. Sometimes just a sentence that I need will come to me because I hear a certain frequency, and it's a sentence that I need in that moment. So you don't need to remember everything. You just need to remember a message that will make a difference in that moment. So the future of trance phenomenon is more interesting meditations and more fun and experiments and play.
And helping people, of course.
Yeah. I mean, that's the underlying point of it.
Yeah.
But just finding more ways to do it that don't follow
the norm.
Yeah, follow the formula, because you know, there's already people following the formula and they're doing a great job at it.
There's always other ways to communicate with different types of people as well.
Absolutely, that's the thing. I think sometimes, you know, so much about wellness is aimed at such an elite market, and it's, you know, this is for people of a certain, you know, pay and race, and, you know, there's so much in wellness that kind of is really exclusive and exclusionary. It keeps people out of it. And it should be for everybody. Yeah. Thinking, you know, meditation, sometimes I think it sounds so blinking pretentious, and and also the word in itself puts people off. You know, just call it better thinking, or just that's a right everybody has to think better thoughts.
It's free.
It's free.
I mean, that
and help people work through trauma. So many people don't realise that they're walking around the world traumatised and afraid and terrified, and they think that they're strong and fearless, but they don't realise how afraid they are. Most people don't realise how afraid they are.
Do you have any personal goals that you're left to fulfill in your career?
Personal goals? I mean, I have plenty. I have...
Apart from more slides.
More slides?
Slides and gardens.
Oh, I think you meant like PowerPoint slides.
Oh, yeah, no, less PowerPoint presentations.
More slides. Yeah. I'd like to travel more.
Yeah.
I'd like to, you know, my ideas of my albums, I want to like make an experience. That's what I'm working towards.
Like a live.
Yeah. I want to do like a live show.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah. It's just finding people that get it, that aren't my moneyless friends. Yeah, getting people that get it, that have, you know, an investment and vision. Yeah, those people aren't there that I've experienced yet.
Yeah,
I'm waiting for them.
So you'll be on stage, trap music, doing meditations.
Yeah, definitely.
I'll be twerking in the background.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, that will bring them in.
Yeah, I'll have Sam behind the camera.
Twerking? No twerking.
No, you just film me twerking in slow-mo. Well, I think, is there anything you'd want to add to, or have I basically rinsed you of all the information in your head for today?
Yeah, I can't think of anything else. It was great.
Yeah.
Oh, it was really a great chat.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you for coming down to our studio. Well, not my studio, but a studio right by my shop called Studio 23. And thank you for giving us all this lovely information.
Not at all. And the one thing I'd say is if anyone wants to, talking about earlier what you said about reaching out, if anyone wants to reach out or is going through something, I'm available. Just find me on Instagram and send me a message.
What I was going to say, what's your Instagram account?
It's Transphenomenon.
Transphenomenon.
And also it's transphenomenon.com, but it's also jessicaboston.com.
Is it the same
Pretty
site?
easy to find. Yeah, it
goes back to the same
goes
site.
back to the same place.
And then when are you looking at having your album out?
God, I mean, I'm going to get it out in 2020.
Yeah.
It's definitely going to come out in 2020. It just depends how it comes out and what format it comes out.
Sell it on Oxford Street with CDs.
Can you imagine
Get them
HMV?
guys. Yeah, know the guys in the streets.
That's a brilliant idea.
Yeah.
Let's go out of a trunk.
Yeah.
Gosh.
You're not seeing the guys?
Maybe I'll get something like that.
Is that happening in London or
Maybe
just
I'll
the US?
do it.
I know it happens in the US. I've seen people in London as well where they go, I want to show you my new CD. And you try and give it to you in your hand and then they're like, you've bought it now. Give me the £5.
Maybe I'll do that.
Yeah.
Like
That'd be
my
like a great
mixtape.
marketing scandal.
Yeah. No, I'm going to get it out there. However, because I'm really proud of it and it's really beautiful.
Yeah, it's
And
cool. I'm definitely going to come down and try one
Oh
of
my
the,
gosh, you
the
have
light
to.
with the
Yeah, it really is next level.
Yeah.
Like it really, really takes you there.
DMT level.
Dance with a whale out in space. That's what everybody wants.
Got a bit of anxiety thinking about it.
It was funny actually. I'm normally a bit not afraid of whales, but I normally have a bit of a thing about. I think it's from the Natural History Museum. They had the big whale at the top, and I was used to be afraid of being underneath a whale.
Yeah.
So when I saw it at first in the vision, I was like, oh. But then I was like, no, it's all fine. It's all safe. It's in that headspace. Everything is fine and safe.
Sounds cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.